versus the major schedule saved the best for last. So, talk here will be by Tracey from Imperial and Wollongong, and she'll be talking about charge configuration and polyfluorenes.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to start by thanking the organisers for the opportunity to talk. So today I'm going to be presenting some of the work that me and PhD student Yin Sun did last year at Imperial College, but now I've recently joined the University of Wollongong. So the work I'm going to be presenting is about polyfluorenes. Traditionally they've been used in OLEDs rather than solar cells. This is because they do have a very good photoluminescence quantum yield. They have a lot of synthetic tunability and they're also quite stable. But they don't perform very well in solar cells at all. So as an example, F8BT PCBM, the structure which is shown here, the devices are terrible. There's virtually no photocurrent at all. So Transient Absorption Spectroscopy, TAS, was performed on this system to try and investigate the reason why. So essentially what you get, instead of the desired free charge carriers, is you get PCBM triplets. So this was observed as a band in the transient spectrum at just after 700 nanometers, and as a mono-exponential oxygen-sensitive decay. So the reason for this behaviour is that F8BT has a really high ionisation potential, 5.9 electron volts, and you can compare that to P3HT, which has much more raised HOMO of 4.8 eV. So the effect of that is to raise the energy of the charge-separated state such that it's higher than the singlet state of PCBM. So instead of this process, which is what we want to occur, we get energy transfer to the PCBM singlet instead, followed by intersystem crossing to form the PCBM triplet. So a lot of other work on a variety of polyfluorenes has been accomplished, and it's been noted by Benson Smith that there is a correlation between the ionisation potential of the polymer and the transient species that you form. So at very high ionisation potentials, you pretty much always get these PCBM triplets. It's only at quite low ionisation potentials that you start to see polyfluorenes form. So essentially all this is if whether or not the charge-separated state is the lowest transient state in your system or not. Red F, which is a proprietary polymer, it's an interesting one because you can see both PCBM triplets and polyfluorenes depending upon the blend composition of your film. So at low PCBM concentrations, about 5%, you see mono-exponential decay PCBM triplets. At a higher PCBM concentration, 50%, you start to see polyfluorenes. So essentially what this means is that for this particular polymer, charge-separated state energy is virtually the same as the PCBM singlet. So when you add that additional PCBM, which that increases the spatially average dielectric constant of the blend, so that slightly lowers the energy of the charge-separated state. So in that case, you're able to get polyfluorenes. So the work, other work that has been done has actually discovered a particular class of polyfluorenes that can produce polyfluorenes and does produce reasonably good solar cells. So this is ATFO3, the structure of which I believe someone spoke about a couple of days ago. It also has a very high ionisation potential, but it produces reasonably good solar cells, about 3.5%, and evidence of polyfluorenes has been observed in transient absorption spectroscopy measurements. So of course that begs the question, why does ATFO3 produce polyfluorenes while F8BT produces triplets when they've got virtually the same ionisation potential? which suggests that there's, of course, something more going on. So the work that we did to investigate this issue was looking at polyindinofluorenes, which behave spectroscopically quite similar to fluorines. So we looked at this WZ021, which is an ionisation potential of 5.6 eV, and WZ015, which is 5.9 eV. So you've got the polyindinofluorine unit here, and benzodiazole. And the only real difference is that you've got these two additional thiophene rings with the WZ021. So in the absorption spectrum, you can see the effect that those thiophene units have. The absorption spectrum of WZ015 is very, very similar to F8BT. They're actually identical. The lowest energy band at about 470 nanometers. With those additional thiophene units, you get a rather significant redshift to about 540 nanometers. So when we looked at the emission properties of these molecules, we discovered that for WZ015, at a very low PCBM concentration, only about 5%, we start to see this PCBM singlet. This is a zoom in of this one. You start to see the PCBM singlet band at 720 nanometers. Whereas with WZ021, you don't see this. It's only at really, really high PCBM concentrations, or about 75%, that you start to see this PCBM singlet band. And that's therefore more likely to be due to direct photoexcitation rather than energy transfer. So then, of course, we did our transient absorption spectroscopy on these polymers. So for WZ015, we've just got the pristine polymer there. You see a very broad band at around 900 nanometers. Whereas with the blend, you see this very distinctive shape around the 700 nanometers. So both of these bands are sensitive to oxygen, which of course suggests that they're triplet states. The pristine has a lifetime of 3 microseconds, which is very similar to the F8BT triplet. So we can therefore assign this band to our polymer triplet state. With the blend, however, not only is the spectrum virtually identical to the well-known PCBM triplet spectrum, but also the lifetime is also very similar. So we can therefore say that in our blend film, we're getting those PCBM triplets that we just don't want. WZ021, however, gives completely different TAS results. So when we look at our decay over time, we can see that we have biphasic kinetics. When we do oxygen-dependent measurements on this, you can see that this phase, the fast phase, is oxygen-dependent, whereas the slower phase is not. Absolutely no dependence whatsoever. And we did this in pure oxygen just to check. So the first phase has a lifetime of about 1 microsecond, which implies the polymer triplet rather than the PCBM triplet, which is consistent with our emission results. The later timescales can be fitted to a Parnell decay, which is indicative of polarons. So it's bimolecular recombination in the presence of an exponential tail of trapped states. When we look at the effect of PCBM concentration, they have quite interesting results. The pristine polymer has a measurable polaron yield, which is quite unusual. In fact, even when you add 50% PCBM, you get quite a similar polaron yield to the pristine polymer, which is very unusual. It's only when you get up to about 75% PCBM that the polaron yield increases quite substantially. The other important thing to note is that the triplet yield, which you can see in this fast phase, increases when you add the PCBM. So the mechanism that was proposed to fit this data was that the polymer triplet, instead of being formed by intersystem crossing, forms by the spin mixing of the charge transfer state. So if we're getting high PL quenching, that when you add the PCBM, it kind of suggests that you don't have that direct intersystem crossing. And because we're seeing that increase in the triplet yield when we add small quantities of PCBM, implies that you're getting it via that charge transfer state with the PCBM. When you add a large amount of PCBM, very similar to CIMOPV, other such polymers like that, this basically promotes this pathway, because essentially you're getting those large domains of PCBM, which is promoting the dissociation of the charge transfer state. So to summarise the results of these two polymers, the WZ015, which produced those PCBM triplets, has identical spectroscopic behaviour to F8BT. WZ021, however, is quite unusual. It can produce reasonable quantities of polarons, despite the fact that the driving force of charge separation is very, very low, less than 0.1 eV. And also the fact that it can produce these polarons despite the fact that it's got the high ionisation potential and therefore the high energy of the charge separated state. So devices of these were measured and we got an unoptimised efficiency of about 2%, whereas WZ015 was more like 0.001%. So the question therefore remains as to why is this behaviour so different? And it appears that the reason for this is that the WZ021 is a charge transfer polymer, it's a donor acceptor polymer, whereas the WZ015, which lacks those sparking rings, is not. When we did some DFT calculations on the molecular orbitals, the state energies, etc., you can see that this absorption band here can be assigned to a partial, only partial, charge transfer transition, where you see the HOMO has a large amount of orbital density on its biofilm units, whereas the LUMO, as you would expect, is primarily localised on the benzodiazole. So this is very similar results than have been published previously for APFO3. Calculations were also done on that particular polymer quite a few years ago, in 2004. And they also assigned this transition to a charge transfer transition. So the effect that this has with regards to energy transfer is the fact that by redshifting the absorption and therefore the emission, we're reducing that overlap with the PCBM absorption. So of course that's going to reduce the probability for energy transfer. Another thing to note, you can't tell by the fact that this is a normalised spectrum, but the PL quantum yield of this blend, the W021, is also much lower than the W015, so that also reduces that overlap. Another issue that might be at stake, but this is a complete theory, so you can tell me I'm wrong, it's fine, is the fact that with a charge transfer transition, and in a sense you might be spatially separating your HOMO from the location where your electron is going to be on the PCBM. So essentially you're increasing the distance of your hole and your electron in your charge transfer state, and that's going to enhance that dissociation. So the implications for photovoltaics will be how I conclude. So it seems that the reason why most polyfluorenes, which usually have high ionisation potentials, the reason they don't perform well in photovoltaic cells is because the energy of the charge transfer state is too high, so you're getting these PCBM triplets rather than what you want, those charge carriers. So therefore, if we can inhibit the energy transfer, they might therefore be useful for photovoltaics. So of course that raises the question of, is the triplet formation the cause of the poor charge photogeneration, or is it simply a byproduct of it? However, for some molecules, for APFO3 and for W021, even though the high ionisation potential does raise the energy of the charge separated state, we can still get those polarons. And that's because both of them have that donor acceptor character, which essentially reshifts the absorption and therefore turns off the energy transfer. So the ability to be able to do this is very beneficial for high ionisation potential polymers, and that might allow us to design, to create new design rules for these particular polymers. So I'd just like to conclude by thanking everyone at Imperial who I worked with there, and you guys for turning up on Saturday. So, thanks guys. Yes, it is.
So, Case pointed out the other day that if you directly excite fullerene, you get just as much contribution to
of current.
Absolutely.
In your system, you're simply transferring the energy to a fluorine. So why do you not get the same? Do you think you not get the same effect? So indirect excitation or direct excitation shouldn't make any difference. So is there a reason why the whole does not come back to the polymer?
It's quite a large energy difference in general between the homo transfer. One of the theories is that you're right that whole transfer does occur, but it obviously is not a very efficient process.
That's right. It's intriguing. Thanks.
Yeah, I just want to comment that your interpretation of the behavior of this AZ021 person is entirely consistent with our ODMR stuff that we've seen for over 20 years, where in the polyalkyl thiophenes, you get a lot more of this polar-on resonance than you do in other polymers that do not contain sulfur, like PPVs or so, and also consistent with a much lower PO quantum yield. So there's a lot more spontaneous splitting of singlets, photoexcited singlets into polarons, and then it's just simply transfer the negative polaron over to the PCBM. It's so easy.
Everybody agrees
It's so easy.
with that mechanism.
Yeah.
I have a question about the morphology. You don't mention morphology at all. And of course, if the domains of PCBM become big, then all of this triplet formation.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, we had a lot of difficulty getting reproducible AFM results on these polymers. And they're definitely amorphous polymers. And initial morphology measurements seem to indicate that it's a very miscible polymer. So at lower PCB concentrations, there's hardly any domain formation. And annealing doesn't seem to help the matter whatsoever. We don't get any increase in efficiency whatsoever.
Any other questions? No, let's make Tracey.